You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's staying warm and doing well. I have the pleasure tonight of having a co-host, Michael Arnold, who is running for state committee man in Cape and Islands. Diane is a little bit under the weather. I don't know if she's going to pop in with us, but I hope she does. Hi, Di. Hi, everybody. Tonight, we're going to tell you a little bit about the Massachusetts Republican State Committee and what it does. So, the Massachusetts Republican State Committee, it's the governing body of the Massachusetts Republican Party in Massachusetts. And the state committee members, there's 80 of them. There's 2 from each district, 1 man and 1 woman, and they play a key role in building the Republican Party in their districts they're supposed to recruit candidates, help with fundraising, register new voters, and grow the local Republican town committees in the district. So the town committees are each town, Barnstable, our district is Barnstable, Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich, Chatham, Brewster, Orleans, Eastham, Wellfleet, Truro, Provincetown. Did I forget anything, Michael?
The islands.
And the islands, right.
Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Gosnold.
Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Gosnold. So they are supposed to, each town has a Republican town committee, and what they do is they help candidates get elected. If you haven't been tuning in for very long, you may not know that we exposed the unwritten rule. The unwritten rule is when elected Republicans refuse to support Republican candidates against incumbent Democrats. And we believe that this is why we have been losing races on the Cape with the incumbents who have been in office for the last 12 years. The other problem that we have with the state committee members is when Charlie Baker was the governor, we have a lot of people on the state committee that were also employees of the state. And that makes it very difficult to have any sort of autonomy. You can't serve 2 masters at the same time because we know how politics works and life in general can be retaliatory. So if the state committee didn't agree with what Charlie Baker wanted, he could potentially, if he wanted to, or someone as his proxy, could fire that person from their state position. So I find, since my short 2 years in politics, is that there are a lot of people that are compromised that are in politics because they are willing to bend at the will of either whoever is in leadership or whoever is holding the purse strings. And Mike and I feel that this is disenfranchised voters because the state committee people on the Cape have been choosing candidates and not allowing other candidates to run. And Mike, what did you think was the worst part of the unwritten rule when we broke that?
The worst part of the unwritten rule is how unaware people were that it was actually in play. Nobody knew it really existed until you were running for office and you reached out to a sitting sitting state rep, and his answer to you asking for his support was he couldn't support you because of the unwritten rule, and he then described what it was. The fact that nobody even knew of its existence until then just shows how long they had been doing it and how well they had concealed their tracks while they were doing it.
The thing that made me most upset was there were so many people that had faith in me that donated money to me. And that, to me, that was the most heartbreaking, is like, not that I personally felt betrayed, but I felt that the unwritten rule people don't understand when they're donating. People donated. I think I raised $25,000 before my primary, which was more than my opponent raised his whole entire candidacy, and he lost. So then I started to think, do they want candidates to lose? Is there some thing behind the scenes? Perhaps are they working with Democrats to advance their own agenda? And that's when I learned that the current state committee woman made over $55,000 the last election cycle, and every candidate lost. And do you want to go through the losses that we had?
Well, we lost the sheriff, we lost the DA, we lost the House seat, we lost everything. We lost from the dog catcher on up. I mean, no, and there were so many seats that ran unopposed. There was no Republicans even standing up to run. So I know you can't really count those as losses, but there were.
I think you can if we're not putting up opposition. I mean, imagine a football team on the field by themselves.
It's a forfeit.
And that's what it is. It's a forfeit. And I believe that it has disenfranchised voters and citizens especially, because the current state committee woman refused to even sign the petition to prevent illegal aliens from getting a driver's license. And why would you do that? They consider themselves a Baker Republican. And I don't know if you have it handy, but you have a we'll see if we can find it. But we do have there seems to be a rift between the Baker Republicans and everyone else. And that really is sad, because unless you're on that Baker team, you don't have funds, you don't get fundraisers. It was devastating to me to find out that other law enforcement people were told not to support me because of this unwritten rule.
Yeah, the unwritten rule and the way they turned against you was unbelievable. But I want to step back for 1 second and talk about the fact that the current sitting committee woman did not sign the petition to keep illegals from getting licenses, because you and I both worked our tails off collecting probably over 1,000 signatures between us for that very thing. And for them not to even go out and sign the petition is a travesty in and of itself. And it's unforgivable for them to do something like that, in my opinion. I'm not sitting in that seat yet. That hopefully will change in a few weeks. But I can tell you what, I'm gonna be a conservative voice for the people who have similar thoughts and values, and they need to be represented, because there has been no representation other than right-wing progressivism and left-wing progressivism in this district for a very, very long time.
And that's hard for people to understand what a right-wing progressive is. I call them a Democrat apologist.
A lot of people call them rhinos. I hear that term all the time. But that's disingenuous. We're not fighting rhinos. We're fighting progressivism. And if you hold up a coin and you look at one side, it's a head. You look at the other side, it's a tail, but it's still a quarter, for instance. Right-wing progressives and left-wing progressives, at the end of the day, they have very similar ideology, which is why it's so easy for them to function in a one-party state, because it doesn't matter who really wins those elections, because their agenda is the same at the end of the day. And when you get a country club Republican who's just comfortable hanging out with the status quo, the people, the working people that are out here trying to make ends meet, their voices are not heard. And that's got to stop. We have to have some representation and get Cape Cod some representation that reflects the values of the family values, the working values of the working class that are struggling so hard to make ends meet and raise their families and pay their mortgage and just live here comfortably.
And I never aspired to be in politics at all. I never had any interest until until they barged into my house, walked through my living room, marched themselves up the stairs and into my kid's bedroom. And that's when I said, whoa, that Rebecca Rausch wants to immunize children in schools with any vaccine that they want, with any doctor, behind our backs. and all the medical records are confidential from me. And I never thought, I knew that our founding fathers, wrote the Constitution, and they understood that our rights were God-given rights. A lot of people think that your rights come from this piece of paper, but they don't. They are God-given rights. You have a right not to be killed. You have a right not to be robbed. You have a right not to be raped. You have a right not to be punished with a cruel and unusual punishment. And those rights ought to be protected. And when you are only putting forth one person, you're kind of violating the tenets of what the United States is. It's a choice. It's free choice, free religion, free speech. So this was a letter that was written to Amy Carnevale. She's the current chair, and she's been soliciting people. And I want to read you this because this is really fabulous. This is I'm not going to say her name because I don't really have a permission, but she says, "Hello, everyone. Are you tired of receiving letters of solicitation from the Mass GOP? I am. Here's my response to her latest request. I think it was worth the cost of a stamp. Dear Ms. Carnevale, thank you for your enthusiastic letter requesting donations to the Mass Republican Party. I have been following Republican politics in Massachusetts for years, and I have come to some inescapable conclusions. 1, there is a Baker Republican Party. 2, there is everyone else. I'm not a part of the Baker Party. I'm deeply troubled by the shadow platform of the Baker Party that encouraged disrespect towards President Trump when he was in office. There was no excuse for that outright rudeness. I continue to support local candidates, but due to the two-party nature of the Massachusetts Republican Party, I will not make any contributions to your organization at this time. Part of the problem, as I see it, is if a conservative decides to run for office, they're guaranteed to have a primary opponent recruited and supported by the Baker Party. This reduces the time to raise funds from 1 year to 8 weeks, thus guaranteeing not only the loss of the election, but the loss of the seat of the Baker opponent who was recruited to give up his seat in order to run against a conservative. The Baker Party would rather lose to Democrats than win with a conservative. This makes the Mass GOP the loser party. I have seen this several times, and the joke amongst conservative candidates is, who is the Baker Party going to drag into this race to make sure you have a primary in September and don't win in November? You never fail to follow the script. I will support the Massachusetts Republican Party when you publicly end the war between the Baker Republicans and everyone else. As a member of the Everyone Else Party, you can remove my name from your solicitation list." Now, I know, the current state committee people say that they are Baker Republicans. Why can't you just be a Republican who supports Republicans?
What they're doing now is they say you have to be more like a Democrat if you want to win elections in Massachusetts. If that's how you feel, then by all means, change your party affiliation and become a Democrat. Because when you act like one and you support candidates like one, you are one. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it usually is a duck. We all know that. And that's why we need to get the right-wing progressives ousted. They have to be taken out. And I have no personal animus against the man that I'm running against at all. Darylyn, I held signs for his campaigns in the past. I helped collect signatures for his races in the past. I have a different vision for the future of the Cape Cod and Islands GOP. And I want to work towards that vision. A lot of people listening right now might not know, but I am a grassroots activist. I work for an organization called Convention of States, and I was majorly responsible for building the team that got the Article 5 Convention of States resolution out of the committee up at the State House, making Massachusetts the first blue state in the history of the nation to get that legislation out of the committee.
And not to get too much into the weeds, but what that Article 5 does is term limits. It puts restraints on congressional spending.
And physical and take power back from the federal government back to the states where it belongs. So that working at that position as the state director for Massachusetts has given me a tremendous amount of experience of building up grassroots armies, interviewing people, and putting them in the right position to get stuff done.
And how I say it is I want to revitalize the Republican Party on the Cape and Islands and form it into something that we can be proud of. I mean, this is when someone holds a unity meeting and, a candidate, Karen McRae, is asked to leave, and state committee candidate Alice Sinkovich is asked to leave. And, we should not be divided against each other. And I've had bosses that I didn't particularly like, but I never walked out on them. I never abandoned them, and I never abandoned my oath. And what I have tried to do is be as sincere as I can since I started to run for state senate and expose just what your choices are. And this isn't about the person, but this is about the behavior. The behavior of the state committee woman is she made $55,000 from candidates in the last losing cycle. And this is a volunteer, no pay, 4-year commitment. Mike and I collected over 120,000 signatures for the petition. She signed none and then said she didn't have the petition. No one would give it to her. She finally got it, and she passed it off to the RTCs. And in our latest email blast, she said that she signed it somewhere at BJ's, but it's a big conspiracy. I don't subscribe to excuses, and I don't believe you do either.
I do not. And just for clarity, Darylyn and I didn't collect 120,000 signatures, but we did help.
Ooh. I meant to say 1,000. There's 120 altogether. There's 1,000. Sorry, my God. We collected 1,000 together. Did I say 120?
You did.
Oh, wishful thinking. Sorry.
We tried.
I don't know why that came out of my mouth. Anyways, but we believed that it was important because when illegals get licenses, it legitimizes their invasion of our country, which is illegal. And if the state committee woman couldn't even sign that petition, and not to mention her co-committee woman, Maureen Maloney, her son, Matthew Denise, was dragged to his death on his motorcycle and hit by an illegal drunk driver. So just out of pure compassion for your coworkers, it's a signature. And then to refuse to answer why you wouldn't sign it, it's just disingenuous, and it's not right. And I believe that I revealed that so that you understand what your choice is. I can work with anybody. Mike can work with anybody. And what we want, though, is people to work for the Cape and Islands citizens. And I don't feel that anyone is doing that. There's no voice speaking out against.
We want to make it where people are comfortable enough to stand up for their own values, knowing that they have a committee man and a committee woman by their side, standing in the breach or behind them, propping them up, that is going to be there for them, so they will run. The only way that their voices can be heard is if they run for local government positions. That's how we're supposed to be governed. The best government is local. The most important government is our local government. We don't need to be worrying about getting some senator up north elected.
Wait, Peter Durant, he's not in our area.
He's not in our area. And the current committee man and committee woman keep throwing up stuff that happened 10 years ago as we won 10 years ago, or we helped Peter Durant. What about Chris Luzon? Where was the help for Chris? Where was the help for Darylyn when she was running? Where was the help for William Peters?
Well, you talk about William Peters a little bit, and how the state committee man, Will Crocker, lost to Kippy Diggs.
Yep, and then they refused to help William Peters run a race against Kippy Diggs, and it was a shame. William Peters is an absolutely phenomenal candidate for that position. He's got a PhD in microbiology.
He's a PhD in bioengineering.
Bioengineering.
He has an MBA, and he studied viruses at Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
And he can also, he'll also drink a beer, and he can change his own oil. So he's left brain, right brain, and a very considerate, very honest, a very loyal, well-spoken, articulate, involved person.
Right. And the current committee man and woman did not support his race at all. They gave him zero support. Darylyn and I are going to change that. We're not going to pick and choose who we support. We're going to support all of the candidates that step forward and are willing to stand up because it takes a lot of chutzpah.
It's not convenient.
It's not, and it's getting kind of nasty, to be honest with you. You know, there's some pretty nasty stuff coming out against myself and Darylyn right now. I mean, I'm a deacon at my church. How nasty can they get against me?
I've been serving my country since I was 17. I joined the Air Force, the Air National Guard, to pay for my college because I didn't get handouts. You know, my dad told me right off the bat that there's no money for college and no money for a wedding. And I was in the state police for 25 years. I served honorably in the state police. I worked on rapes, homicides. I worked undercover narcotics for 10 years. And so to try to denigrate that public service, I believe is disingenuous. And that's not how you support the police. And nobody supports the police more than the people who had to put on the uniform, the vest, and the gun.
Amen.
But I think what was most disturbing is, you know, when you rule by fear, those are the worst leaders in the world. When you rule by fear, other people will do your bidding. So I didn't have access to the Orleans Republican Town Committee. I didn't have access to the Yarmouth Republican Town Committee or the Harwich Republican Town Committee, or Dennis. And, you know, that's where the unwritten rule comes in.
That's another face of the unwritten rule for sure. Those are fear tactics of telling the RTCs not to invite us in. I must say, I'm very pleased that we're going to get to see the Yarmouth RTC next week.
But Tracy Post invited us.
Tracy Post invited us, and hats off to Tracy.
Yep, extremely magnanimous of her to do that, and we'll be meeting them for the first time.
And I'm looking very much forward to that. I haven't talked to Tracy in several years, actually.
And Harwich did have us recently.
Harwich had us. We've been to Brewster. We've gotten Nantucket. We've got people over on Martha's Vineyard that are helping us. And Chatham fully endorsed us. But the RTCs are finally starting to listen to us, and that's good because our voice should be heard. All voices must be heard.
And one of the things that I noticed about, and I'm sure if there's any other candidates out there, there's an awful lot of time going to each Republican town committee. So, for instance, if Crystal's on, he lives in Marston Mills, and if he has to go to Orleans, you know, he has to fight the traffic, and then he has to park, and then he speaks, and then he has to leave. So it takes 3 hours. I think it would be great if the Republican town committees could get together at one, you know, time that's convenient and meet the candidate. And that would save the candidate at least, you know, probably 40 hours where they could be campaigning, where they could be knocking on doors, where they could be speaking to people, where they could be raising money, because there's a triangle that you work from, and it's connections, money, and votes. And if you're not making connections and you're not getting money and you're not getting votes, you're wasting your time. So if you're wasting your time driving. And then, did you notice that some RTCs didn't know members of the other RTCs?
Yes, and that is going to change. When you and I get elected, I'm going to make it one of my primary goals. As you know, I get teams together. One of my primary goals is going to be to connect those RTCs so that we're all working in the same direction. Yes, I want Chatham to focus on Chatham and Truro to focus on Truro, but the overall district that we are living in has to be a secondary focus. If we all focus on our town and we all do the good things in our town that are necessary, then we can start helping each other in other towns and make the whole district a stronger place for the Republican voice to be heard. We cannot just keep having a one-party rule. There has to be a secondary opinion that gets listened to.
And it's tantamount to just being a good neighbor. So if Truro has a committee and Wellfleet has a committee, say that there's a special election in one of those towns, you would hope that the people from that Republican town committee and possibly other ones would help go to that town and knock on doors and meet people and explain, because a self-governing citizenry is what you and I are hoping for, is for people to understand that you do have a voice. And it starts by going to your town meetings. What do people say? Like, I don't want to get involved. Politics is nasty.
My vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
Well, if you sit home on the couch, you're certainly right. Your vote will not count. We had a town councilor race here in the last election cycle that was decided by one vote. So if two people had gotten up, one of the things that Daryl and I say all the time is stand up, show up, and speak up. If two people had gotten up and went and voted in that election that would have been a different result.
And that's sad. I mean, a great candidate was, Toby Leary.
And we worked hard for Toby.
Yeah, and Kristen Turkelson won.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about that. But I don't think it should be a lifelong commitment, because you want to do what's best for the citizens. And on social media, I've actually seen that, these buses are coming in the middle of the night. And did you ever think that we had $45 extra million a month laying around?
Well, I wouldn't mind having a couple extra bucks in my own check.
Well, how about some of the homeless people in Hyannis? They need mental health just like anyone else, yet there's illegal invaders from other countries that Democrats invited here that are getting Visa cards with $1,000 on them. They're getting food that they don't even like that they throw away. And here we see that they're beating up cops, getting out of court, and then giving us the finger. That's not a grateful population. And I'm not saying that they're all like that, but even some of the Brazilians that I know are really mad because they waited 10, 12, 15 years before they became citizens.
I would put one qualifier in what you just said. Progressives are inviting them in here. It's not a Democrat-Republican thing. I really don't believe. I think it's a right and left-wing progressives that are doing this to us. That's where the fight is. That's where the battle lines are. Don't let the fog of war get you pitting Democrats against Republicans. Mm-hmm. This is the citizenry against left and right wing progressivism. That's what's rampant in not just our state, but in our district. And we can see it because we're on boots on the ground and it's right in front of us. The people who can't see it are the ones that have their nose to the grindstone, working their tails off to make ends meet. They have no idea what's going on. When you look at the ballot that we're going to be on in March, there's 2 slates for Republican Town Committee. People were calling me all day today saying, what's this slate number 2?
Tell people how that works. It's every 4 years that the local town committees are reelected. And if you aren't happy with what's been done in your town politically, you can do what we did.
Yeah, what's been happening for decades is the Republican Town Committee for, let's say, the town of Barnstable, because that's the one that we're involved with. You get every presidential primary on Super Tuesday, you get to vote for that Republican Town Committee. But that's the only choice you get is the names on that list. So what Daryl and I have done is people were coming to us saying that they're frustrated with the Barnstable Town Committee. So we put together an alternate slate. And we got the people who came to us and we put their names on the papers, the petition. We submitted our papers. And now when you pull a ballot in the town of Barnstable on March 5th, there's going to be column 1, which is the 35 progressives that aren't doing much in our town. And then on column 2 is going to be the slate that Darren and I put together. I think it has 12 or 15 people on it. And so there's a choice. And people aren't used to having that choice. I fielded several calls today asking me, what is this column number 2? Because they've never seen it before. It's only been a one choice, a one trick pony.
Do you know what? I heard that the current incumbent state committee woman was telling people that was a mistake. Yeah, that the column was a mistake and to avoid it.
Someone indicated to me that they had received the communication to ignore the second column. Whether or not anyone ever said it was a mistake, I'd have to see that evidence with my own eyes before.
That's what I said. Someone just told me that, but
yeah,
the desire to stay in power, or to have power over people or have power over decisions. I mean, look at your towns. Orleans has a $40 million budget. Sewers coming in. There's shakeups in the towns. Look at Wellfleet. I mean, I'm surprised Wellfleet hasn't come under receivership.
Give it time.
Because people need to be to know what's going on. I mean, there's a $25 million budget in Mashpee for the high school, and the superintendent just voted herself a raise. She makes $275,000. She's the highest paid. And she brought state prisoners into the school without parents' knowledge. And look at what they're teaching our kids. That bill that I told you about, that community immunity bill, Rebecca Rush, Democrat senator, wants to put it in the law that there's no religious exemptions. How is that? That's not that. There's no checks at the State House, as I found out. There's no one that says, okay, let me check your work and make sure this bill is constitutional.
Yeah.
So they could pass it, and then it'll have to go to the Supreme Court. And we would also like to, Mike and I, with another friend of ours, April Croker, she does a really great job with red flag legislation. So we want to let you know about what that red flag legislation is. And most towns' elections are nonpartisan, but you still want to have someone who's qualified and has the citizens' best interest. Your town clerks. The broken vault was extremely problematic for me.
It was. You made a really good point there a couple of seconds ago when you were talking about the legislation up at the State House, where they're going to take away any possibility of a religious immunity or exemption. One way that we battle that is to get all of our local seats to have competition running for them, because if we can control, again, our local government, we can have more of an effect on who we send up to Boston to represent us. When someone is up in Boston representing whatever that is, there's a problem. And the problem is at the local level. And that's what the Republican committee man and committee woman, that's their job, is to make sure that those positions are vied for, are battled for, and filled with the people with the best ideas, with the people with the passion in their bellies to stand up and take that fight to the finish line.
And I would also like to personally see the state committee people being a little more vocal. There was a big problem in Canton. I don't know if anyone's aware of it. There was Jennifer Chan O'Donnell, I believe, Kathleen Howley, and Rita Lombardi were speaking out against the perhaps some corruption that was going on with the selectman's office as well as the police department. So they put together a petition to have a special meeting. And I've never been more proud of three women that, took it upon themselves to take on their town. And of course, they were called names and they were ostracized. And, much has happened to us for running for office and for speaking the truth, because for some reason, people like to keep that, where the money goes and who it goes to, all under the covers.
I've been surprised that people are so upset that we're trying to give them an option. We're trying to say you don't have to do. What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting a different result. The fact that you and I have enough compassion for our fellow citizens to stand up and offer a new vision for the failing Republican GOP in the Cape and Islands district, the fact that we're met with such dissension and anger is astounding to me.
What I don't understand is when you look at our beaches, and another thing, there was the thing about the tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's that email?
Just read the email. The thing is you don't work for the State House.
Exactly.
You work for the people who elected you. And, I appreciate all the other things that are done, but one of the things that, what about our beaches? What about Centerville? If Centerville is ripped up and they're doing the double dredging, if they do the dredging for the windmills and also the dredging for the sewage, those houses, all those foundations are rock foundations. They're old. The reverberation, once that power gets through there, is going to start to erode slowly the mechanical strength of those buildings. And who's going to pay for that? The town's going to say it was the windmills. The windmills is going to say it was the town. So no one's protecting the citizens.
And who's going to say it's climate change at the end of the day anyway?
Right. And we're killing whales. We're ripping up beaches. Yet, God bless Kristen Turkelson. She is all over the windmills.
Yeah.
And she is all over. And I know if Toby was elected, he would be all in there for small businesses. And
well, thank goodness the power structure in the town council did get changed in the last election, because they were selling us down the river from what I saw. And I think it was good that we got some fresh blood in there with people that are willing, again, like we keep saying, willing to stand up and fight. That's what it takes. And those people leading by example should be an inspiration to others that are watching that, yeah, I can do it too.
I was upset one time. I called one of the members of the town council and I said, why do you want to sell off all our land? And they said, well, it's an asset that's just sitting there, not doing anything for us. And I said, whoa, if you sell off everything we have, we will have nothing. And then once that hedge fund that buys that property decides that they've made enough money and they want to move on, they're going to sell it to foreign wealth. And now we're going to be owned by China next door to us. And I don't want that.
I don't want that either.
And the housing situation, we can't find housing for our own people, but somehow we have filled up every single hotel and empty building and given all this money, the schools. How are the teachers ever, the students? We're teaching to the least common denominator.
That's why it's so important that you and I get elected, so we can find people that are willing to stand up and have that fight, make that point, and back that point up in an articulable way.
And we take the slings and the arrows.
Gladly. You said earlier you never wanted to run for office. Neither did I. But I recently actually 6 months ago, I became a grandfather for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm a young grandfather. But when my granddaughter was born, I was like, oh my goodness, what is the Cape Cod going to be like when she's a teenager, when she has children? And the prospects are poor. Looking at the failing GOP over the last 12 years, it's not good. A one-party system is slowly but surely grinding Cape Cod into oblivion. And we need to have a second voice. You can't have a bird fly with only one wing. Right now, if you can picture a seagull flying in the sky above your head, and it has a really strong, powerful left wing and a little teeny weeny weak right wing, it's going to spiral out of control until it eventually crashes and burns. We need to strengthen the right wing of the Massachusetts bird.
But I also think that some voters need to be, well, I would like them to, I don't say need because who am I? But I've observed that when voters don't agree with everything that a candidate has to say, they will discard them.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have more of an open mind. And, even people that are married don't agree with everything. Brothers and sisters don't agree with everything. But to just toss a candidate because of one thing, there could be 99 things that you agree with, but one thing that you don't, you're still throwing away your vote if you're not going to go with a person who has the 99 and not that one thing that you want.
Yep.
But we, the people, is me and you and you and you out there and everyone else out there. And I guess I want to know, what are you willing to do to keep your beaches, to keep your schools, to keep your rights? It's not the time to be silent, and we are in a war right now. We're in a cultural war. We're in a war on all sides, like a literal war.
We're being invaded, literally.
Rick, did you want to chime in? And the war is the war on vocabulary. We have made up twisted words that don't mean anything. I mean, I went to go volunteer for Independence House, and I had this training with MOVA, and this one woman said to me, well, if you don't introduce yourself with, hi, my name's Darylyn Haywood and my pronouns are she, her. I said, I'm not doing that. People are going to think I'm nuts. I go, because if it's obviously a woman, she's going to think I'm crazy. And if it's a man in a dress with an Adam's apple, I will treat him respectfully, and I will ask how he would like to be addressed. I mean, it's just common sense politeness. I'm a live and let live person, but it just seems that if you don't agree with this liberal agenda you're canceled, yet they talk about inclusiveness and diversity. And someone asked me the other day, well, who do you think's going to run the state police? I said, well, Jack Mon's been doing the job. Just give him the title. But they're looking for a one-legged Samoan pansexual. Like everybody's the first Jewish, second woman, third. Enough.
Diversity, inclusion, and equity. DIE.
And that's not teaching. I was at a meeting last night, and the town is sponsoring a 14-week summer program on Taylor Swift. I said, what about advanced math and science? What about a swim class? Skills? What about media and journalism or something that will grow your mind? In the disrespect for police, I think that's probably the worst, because our local police are our first line of defense. So I found it really disheartening when a certain elected member was telling other police departments not to let me speak to their unions. I was, who's going to stick up for you? Julian Sear now? No, Julian Sear's not. He says you're all racist, and he's a single agenda activist. But until we come together as humans, I'm not only a Republican. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I'm a person who cares deeply about other people, even if I don't know them. And when you believe in servant leadership, why don't you tell everybody what servant leadership is?
Well, servant leadership, it's part of I talked about Convention of States a little bit earlier. It's part of the Convention of States culture. It's actually a class that we take and teach. I've taught a couple of them. And it's a lifestyle. It's putting others before self. But it's also being able to set goals and hold each other accountable. And we set SMART goals. And it's basically a lifestyle. And if you have that lifestyle in your culture, it will reflect in your local government. We're not being governed anymore. We're being ruled.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to stop. We need servant leaders that are there for the good of the community when they put others before self. That's what it's all about. That's how our nation was founded to be run, was servant leaders going into elected office, doing their business, and then going back home and living under the rules and the laws that they helped create while they were in service to the community.
But what about this retaliation? There's so much retaliation. If people don't want to enroll as a Republican, they want to stay unenrolled, so they won't get promoted, or I think the only way is to be able to speak your piece. And some people just don't want the aggravation, and they give in. And I think the more you give in, the more that your schools are taken over. Now our CAPE is taken over.
Yeah.
I walked into a store, and I was stopped to get a bite to eat after I went to this class last night, and the people came in there, and I don't think anybody spoke English that came into the bar. None of them have had IDs, but they were, trying to get drinks, and then they started to get rowdy. And I said, well, listen, I'm not a cop anymore. I don't think I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So the whole fabric of the CAPE is changing, and people are leaving. And instead of putting people in these beehive apartments where they never own anything and they never advance, I would like to find a way to work with stakeholders and communities that the citizens, either by small business or some kind of business growth or entrepreneurship, we need to make those people more profitable, not shove them in workforce, which to me means illegals, apartments, where the only people that make money are people who market it, who market it, who know the inside track on, what kind of money's coming where, their friends, their builders, their real estate people. And the town suffers because they don't want beehive housing.
Imagine the money you could make if you owned a marketing firm that was working to get high-rise places built on Cape Cod. You could make a fortune at that.
Well, I think that's what one of the incumbents does, is markets for companies that want to build high rises. That's not working for the citizens of the Cape and Islands, and the towns don't want it. I think Yarmouth is doing a very good job, from what I understand, of controlling the rule. You can't live in a hotel for more than 30 days.
Yeah.
And I don't care what Maura Healey says.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have to listen to the governor. It's bottom up. It's not top down. That's what people are failing to remember in our local government and in our state and in our national government especially. Let's really quickly look at the national level, which I don't want to do a lot because I want to focus on our race. But at the national level, there's a word called sovereign or sovereignty. Sovereignty is where the source of political power comes from, and it comes from the grassroots, from the bottom up, and not from the top down. When you're talking about the president or the Congress, or even locally from the governor down, that's bottom down ruling. What we're trying to do is work the other way. We're trying to build the grassroots community in the Cape and Islands district to reverse the power structure. Right now it's flipped upside down on its head. We're a triangle teetering like this, and we need to flip the base back down and work bottom up. And that's what we're vowing to do when we get elected in a couple weeks.
And we had about 40 people at our fundraiser last time.
We had more than that. Some people came and left, but we had closer to 60.
I think one of Eric, who's the guy that used to be the Steinhellerberger or whatever, he came in and did a head count, but Eric, you were too late because a lot of people had already left. But that kind
of more people came after he left. But the bad part is he's supposed to be a Republican. He came to a Republican fundraiser. He didn't even make a donation to us. Everybody that came made a donation except for him. All he was there for was to get a head count, look at the faces to see who was there, and then he left.
So I brought this up to another member of the town council. I said, how does Eric, I don't know how to say his name, how does he justify going to work for HAC? HAC is a Julian Sear entity. His sister works there. It's a liberal, and they want to build these high-rise beehive, and they want to house illegal invaders, and that's what they're going to do. And when you can't tell me
if only they can market it.
If only they could market it. And it's a good thing the incumbent has a marketing company that.
What?
Yeah, she does.
Who?
Yeah, Judy Crocker.
Oh my goodness!
It's make you known marketing. And it's funny because I was looking at the website the other day, and it says that perception is better than truth. So in a crisis,
well, that's a new one.
Yeah, perception. So I don't believe in that. Maybe this is a newfangled thing in politics, but transparency is important.
Transparency and tenacity, which you and I have in spades. That's one thing that Daryl and I are very transparent. People don't like the truth. They want the uncomfortable. They'll take the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. Daryl and I are not afraid to stand up and tell the truth and call it like it is. And we're not doing it with any kind of animosity, because the truth is the truth, and the truth doesn't care about your feelings. So I'm not afraid to stand up and let my voice be heard. I train people to do it. I've built grassroots teams just to do it. I'm telling all the people all the time, you got to stand up and engage. Well, here I am. I'm doing it. I'm not just talking the talk. I'm walking the walk. And so is my friend Daryl.
So how come people think that the truth is rude? Because I don't think I've ever portrayed it in a rude manner, but people will say, like behind my back, that another candidate has actually said to you, oh, she's crazy. Everybody hates her. That's another Republican. That's the whisper campaign. That's that's not unity.
They think it's rude because it goes against their confirmation bias. They are used to the way things are. And when you point out a truth, the ugly truth, it comes attached to their feelings. So when you're hitting on their truth, you're tapping and tugging on their feelings. And they're equating feelings and facts together. Facts don't care about feelings, but when people get upset when you're telling them the truth, generally it's because they don't want to hear the truth, because they have allowed it to grow and to grow into fruition.
And then they don't know what's the truth and what's a lie, and they keep backing up that lie.
Yeah,
and the reason
you can market a lie really good if you had a marketing company.
If you only can change the perception.
Yeah, because perception is more important than truth.
It certainly is.
And by marketing, you can change the perception.
And when you so say what you would do is say you are marketing a high-rise beehive apartment style. One of the things you might say is, well, people, they need a place to go, and it's not
you would
right.
Want town councilors that agree.
You want town councilors, and perhaps maybe the town councilor owns an HVAC company, or he does paving or plumbing company.
Water filtration,
and hey, if you just wink, hire this person as the town manager, we can push these millions of dollars
these
through.
Are the things that we need to work on. These are the races that we need to race against, and these are the fights that we need to find people to fight.
Because it's our money. People say, "Oh, we'll get federal money." No, that's our money too. That's our money too.
Yeah, that's been stolen from us. But when people hear us talking like this, they think we're being mean, but we're not. We're trying to introduce them to cold, hard reality and truth. And if it sounds mean, sorry, but you have to look at reality before you can make any change. You have to acknowledge the position you're in currently.
It's like this, someone will come to me and say, I think my husband's cheating on me. And, I'm a private investigator. And I'll say, if you think he is, then he is. So, if you think politicians are lying to you, then they are. But being truthful doesn't mean that you can't negotiate, that you're not respectful, that you can't have camaraderie with people. But, when people go out of their way to say, oh, Julian Sears, my very good friend. Well, you have 2 daughters and he wants to legalize prostitution and all drugs and bring a safe heroin shoot-up site. Is he really your good friend? Because I don't want to be your good friend if that's what your good friend is.
Yeah.
It's a work relationship, but you work for the people of the Cape and Islands. And I don't see that. And we're running out of time, so if you want to wrap up, Mike.
Well, I would encourage all of you, please, educate yourselves about the state committee man and committee woman and what they are, and realize that Darren and I are putting ourselves out there for your consideration. Again, it's Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Gosnold. We vow to you, your voices will be heard. We will be in your towns on a regular basis to help you. We will support you, train you, help fund you to run your races.
Where can we find you?
We need you to help us now.
Oh, we have a fundraiser coming up on the 25th. Rick, sorry to say this real quick. The 25th at Wildfire Pizza, 2A Center Street in Mashpee. Wildfire, they are patriots and veterans.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. We're asking for a $30 donation.
And it's the best pizza within 100 miles of Cape Cod. It is the best.
You have to have the lemon snickety. But you can find me on Facebook on Double D Uncensored.
And I'm at Michael Arnold for State Committee.
God bless America. God bless the Cape and Islands. And please, please get involved.
And God bless each and every one of you listening. Thank you.
Muscatel, either one would be just swell. I did a